No one ever fainted in Professor Tilvex's lectures, not even during the one on parasitic larval birthing in aquatic Regnari queens, which came with full holo visuals and an optional scent simulator. Today, 6 students had already passed out, and class hadn't even started. At the center of the chaos stood a lunchbox. It wasn't glowing. It wasn't emitting any detectable radiation. It didn't even hum. It was, by all accounts, a perfectly ordinary thermosteel container. But it was open. And inside, layered between slices of toasted rye, was what the Galactic Nutritional Council classified as a Level 4 biological hazard: cooked animal flesh. With condiments. Professor Tilvex, 12 feet tall, spine arched with indignation, stood frozen behind the lecture platform, optic lobes twitching in quiet horror. Is that meat? Alex, the human exchange student from Earth, looked up mid-bite. He chewed slowly, uncomfortably aware that 47 pairs of non-human eyes were tracking the motion of his jaw like a bomb countdown. Yeah. Lunch? A threll in the second row made a strangled sound and fainted into his own nutrient vaporizer. Tilvex slammed a tentacle against the emergency panel. Containment shields snapped into place with a crack, sealing Alex inside a shimmering cube of sterile light. "For the sake of your internal organs," Tilvex barked, "do not swallow that bite." Alex paused, blinked, then very deliberately swallowed. Pandemonium broke loose. A floon screamed and curled into its own carapace. Someone triggered a full-spectrum biohazard alert, which led to the security drones flooding in with scanner arms deployed and stun prods at the ready. One hovered inches from Alex's chest. "Please remain motionless," it instructed in a cold, mechanical tone. "You have ingested unsafe molecular matter. Initiating emergency gastric stabilization." Wait, what does that mean?" Alex took a step back. "I just ate a sandwich." The drone's scanner flashed red. Sandwich contains denatured proteins, acidic vegetables, lipid-based emulsifiers, and thermal coagulated animal tissue. Class 4 digestive threat detected. Professor Tilvex staggered away from the platform, as though the very concept of salami had personally offended its ancestors. "Do not attempt further ingestion. We may still reverse the process before your lower intestines rupture from enzymatic trauma." Alex raised both hands in surrender, dropping the rest of the sandwich onto the desk in front of him. It landed with a soft, greasy thump. Okay, it's just food. I've eaten this like 100 times. I made it last night. Homemade smoked brisket, cabbage slaw, mustard, rye, pickled red onions. You know, basic sandwich stuff." That only made it worse. The phrase "pickled red onions" triggered a fainting response in both Floon and one of the Sacchetti twins. Another drone scanned the fallen sandwich. Vinegar presence confirmed. Acidic organic fermentation. Probability of gastrointestinal corrosion, 86%. "I am begging you," Alex said flatly, "do not try to pump my stomach." But it was already too late. Within minutes, Alex was gently but firmly restrained by 2 emergency medical drones and hauled sandwich and all down the corridor toward the university's medical wing. A final glance back through the glass revealed his lunchbox being sealed inside a biohazard vault and doused with sterilizing foam. Someone, probably the Garkti girl from Life Systems, was crying. Alex sighed. This could have gone better. The medbay aboard Andol Prime University was not built with humans in mind. The diagnostic beds flexed and curved around torsos with too many joints, and the ceilings were high enough to accommodate species that coiled or hovered rather than walked. Alex sat on one of the few adjustable tables, a cold sensor pad pressed against his abdomen. 4 researchers stood in a semicircle nearby, wearing sterile overlays and deeply uncomfortable expressions. "I keep telling you," Alex said. "I feel fine." Dr. Voss, a Drellic specialist with a translucent neck pouch and a fondness for excessive note-taking, gestured toward the hollow screen. "Your abdominal readings are contradictory. You exhibit healthy enzymatic output, standard muscular contractions in the lower intestines, and no mucosal hemorrhaging, despite the ingestion of compound proteins and unneutralized acids. This is medically irrational." One of the other doctors, a young Tharnis postdoc named Relka, peered at a second screen. "We ran a full volatile stomach acid map. His system actually increased acid production after ingestion, and yet his gastric lining remains intact." Dr. Voss squinted at Alex. "How often do you eat this way?" Alex shrugged. Pretty much every day. Another doctor made a faint choking sound. They'd already run 3 rounds of enzyme compatibility scans, 2 electrolyte tests, and a protein separation tolerance suite. Nothing about the human digestive system made sense to them. Your saliva contains both amylase and lipase, Relka muttered, pacing. Why would you break down fats and starches simultaneously? Because sandwiches have both, Alex offered. That's a terrible answer, said Voss. Yeah, well, Alex mumbled, so's your bedside manner. Hours passed. The doctors escalated, not in panic, but in morbid fascination. Alex was fed controlled samples of individual food types, each one a potential threat by galactic standards. Raw spinach, pickled eggs, coffee, carbonated soda, jerky, a banana. He digested all of it. They added mixed meals, curry over rice, a cold tuna salad with mayo, a chocolate chip cookie. Tilvex, watching the footage remotely, nearly had a nervous episode when Alex licked an empty ketchup packet. No physiological collapse, just a bit of bloating and mild reflux. You said there'd be hot sauce, Alex muttered, curled slightly on the side after the last round. What was in that thing? Lava extract. It was a standard Vroktan fusion chili, Dr. Voss said, without remorse. It was important to gauge reaction time. The violent gastric cramping was within expected range. Cool, Alex groaned. So you poisoned me with alien peppers for science. We warned you not to ingest anything, Relka reminded. I was hungry. Dr. Voss folded his appendages. And yet, biologically, your digestive tract survived everything we threw at it. We are forced to conclude that Terran digestion functions as a biochemical compromise system. One that prioritizes survival over efficiency. Alex didn't respond right away. He was sipping electrolyte fluid through a long straw, propped up against a gel-based support column. It's not perfect, he muttered eventually. We don't digest everything well. Just well enough. That's what we're built for. He grimaced, stomach still rebelling faintly against the alien chili. Can I go back to class now? Dr. Voss exchanged a glance with the others. You will remain under observation for another day, just to be sure. But yes, assuming nothing ruptures overnight, you will be cleared to return. Alex nodded, too tired to argue. He just wanted to eat lunch, not become a biological enigma. When morning came, he still wasn't entirely right. The chili incident had left him dehydrated and irritable, with sore abdominal muscles from extended cramping. The nurses had been kind one of them had, and they'd pumped him full of fluids and a nutrient gel pack designed to stabilize multi-system imbalance. It tasted like sweet, warm glue, possibly banana-flavored. Possibly not. But his vitals stabilized, his blood work remained intact, and after one final scan of his small intestine for micro-lesions, they let him go. Sort of. He wasn't allowed to walk out alone. 2 security drones followed behind at shoulder height, recording every step. By the time he reached the lecture hall, it was already full. Every student was present. The containment panels were deactivated, but the air had a distinctly sanitized feel. Professor Tilvex stood tall behind the podium, rigid and wordless, as Alex walked in. The silence was deep. Alex stepped to the front, cleared his throat, and looked over the sea of wide, uncertain eyes. You wanted an explanation, he said. He adjusted the collar of his shirt and winced as his stomach made a tiny, traitorous gurgle. Okay, let's talk about lunch. The silence in the lecture hall was deep enough to feel like pressure. No one shuffled their seat cushions. No one adjusted their translator implants. Even the air filters seemed to be breathing softer. Alex scanned the crowd. Some of the alien students wouldn't meet his gaze. A few wore filtration masks now, despite no airborne threat. The 2 Floon who'd fainted the day before had moved to the farthest row, tucked behind a portable sanitization barrier that emitted a steady blue shimmer. And Professor Tilvex, tall and severe, watched with an expression somewhere between academic curiosity and suppressed panic. Alex swallowed. His stomach didn't gurgle this time. I'm not here to offend anyone, he began. I didn't mean to disrupt the lecture yesterday. I brought my lunch. I sat in the back like always. I didn't think it would be a diplomatic incident. A ripple of embarrassed murmurs passed through the students. One Garkti leaned sideways and whispered something to her seatmate, who quietly pulled out a small barf bag. I know the sandwich was a bit much, Alex admitted, but the issue started before I even opened the box. He looked directly at Tilvex. You said omnivory was impossible, that no advanced species could digest both animal proteins and plant matter without biochemical failure. Tilvex twitched. Correct. Based on universal enzymatic logic and existing digestive models across 85 charted species, the simultaneous processing of denatured proteins and fibrous plant cellulose results in molecular conflict, gut flora imbalances, enzyme depletion, intestinal stasis, catastrophic microbial cascade. Alex raised a hand. Right, but see, humans do that, every day, for millions of years. We've got gut flora that's been with us since before we walked upright. We adapted, slowly, painfully, and we got good at it. Statistically improbable, Tilvex countered. Survival rates in omnivorous conditions should have trended toward extinction. The biochemical inefficiency alone would select against such evolution. Alex scratched his jaw, thoughtful. Yeah, should've. But we're still here. That earned a few low, incredulous huffs from the students. One of the Sacchetti twins raised a tentacle. So you're saying you brute forced your way through digestive evolution? There it was. Alex cracked a small smile. We brute forced lunch. Tilvex's neural crest flared briefly, a subtle sign of internal recalculation. I've got a couple slides, Alex said, turning to the podium. If that's okay? Tilvex hesitated, then stepped aside. Proceed. Slide 1. An image of an ancient campfire, with two hominids roasting meat on sharpened sticks. This is us, around 2 million years ago, Alex said. Fire gave us a head start. Cooking breaks down proteins and starches, makes food easier to digest. We didn't wait for our stomachs to evolve. We outsourced the process. Next slide. A montage of preserved foods, pickled vegetables, salted fish, smoked meats, fermented milk. When you don't have refrigeration, you have to get creative. Humans learned how to preserve food in ways that made it last without killing us. Sometimes, it almost killed us. But if it worked once, we tried it again. If it made someone sick, we changed the method. The Garkti girl winced as the image of fermented herring filled the screen. We evolved in unpredictable climates, Alex continued. Grasslands, glaciers, rainforests, droughts, famines. Our diet wasn't optimized, it was opportunistic. You eat what's available. If it's meat, you hunt. If it's tubers, you dig. If it's insects, you close your eyes and crunch. A thrall in the third row looked physically ill. Tilvex interjected, arms folded. Even if you evolved for adaptive digestion, your body must expend considerable energy balancing that internal chaos. Surely the cost is immense. Alex nodded. It is, but we didn't evolve to be efficient. We evolved to not die. He let that hang in the air a moment longer than comfortable. Then he changed the slide. The next image showed a basic anatomical breakdown of the human digestive system. Nothing too graphic, just a simplified diagram. Labels flashed in local script: stomach acid pH, enzymatic release zones, intestinal flora diversity. I know this looks like a biological disaster to most of you. Acidic enough to dissolve bone, slow enough to let bacteria get cozy. But every piece plays a role. Our stomach acid isn't just strong, it's volatile. We can kill a lot of pathogens before they reach our gut. And the stuff that makes it through? Alex shrugged. We've got friendly bacteria that help break it down. A Sacchetti raised a hand. Your bacteria you allow symbiosis with gut fauna? Yeah, we're basically walking ecosystems. About as many bacterial cells as human cells in the body, depending on the count. A horrified gasp rolled through the auditorium. Tilvex's primary eye twitched. And you live with this microbial imbalance? We need it, Alex said. Without it, our digestion crashes. That's why we invented antibiotics to kill the bad microbes and probiotics to replenish the good ones. A floon raised a trembling limb. You drink milk? From another species? Alex blinked. Yeah, cows, mostly. Sometimes goats. We even make cheese out of it. Two students fainted. Tilvex leaned in. Your species survived environmental cataclysms, food scarcity, pathogenic threats. And your solution was to make more chaotic food? Pretty much. We learned how to cook, ferment, freeze, boil, pickle, dry, cure, salt, and fry. If we couldn't digest it raw, we found a way to make it digestible. Tilvex said nothing for a long moment. Then, you were not designed to thrive. You engineered the ability to tolerate. Alex gave a tired smile. Now you're getting it. After the lecture, Alex expected questions. He didn't expect a crowd. Students flooded down the steps, cautiously curious. They didn't get too close, and no one sat next to him, but the buffer zone had shrunk from 5 meters to 1. The Sacchetti twins asked if he had pictures of other human meals. A Tharnis student requested a sample of the mustard he'd mentioned. The Garkti girl, now masked, asked what kind of meat was in the sandwich. Brisket, Alex said. That's cow? Yeah. Her translator hesitated before providing a cultural euphemism for terrestrial hoof beast. She shuddered, but she stayed. Then, Tilvex approached. The crowd parted instantly. Alex stood to meet him. Professor. I owe you an apology, Tilvex said, and a correction. Alex tilted his head. In my earlier lectures, Tilvex continued, I stated categorically that omnivory was incompatible with advanced biological systems. I was mistaken. Alex blinked. You're revising the course material? I am issuing a formal correction, Tilvex replied, and authorizing a new elective under the Department of Comparative Physiology, Human Nutritional Insanity, and Adaptive Overview. The Garkti girl snorted. That's the actual course name? It is accurate. Alex grinned. You'll need guest lectures. I was hoping you'd say that. The course filled in 17 minutes. Every seat, even the overflow slots. The waiting list passed 100 by midday. Rules were posted. No open food in the lecture hall. No human condiments without clearance. No unsolicited sharing of dairy-related facts. Alex sat on a stool near the front, watching as aliens took notes on lactose tolerance and the Maillard reaction. He didn't bring another sandwich. Not for a while. His stomach still needed time. Real time. The cramps from the hot sauce lingered for 2 days. The bloating passed after 1. His electrolyte balance was back to normal, but he still drank recovery fluid at lunch instead of soda. He'd pushed his gut too far, too fast. Even so, the med team kept asking questions. Especially about peanut butter. The jar sat sealed in a vacuum-stabilized specimen chamber, housed behind a triple redundant bioscreen in the university's xenodietetics lab. It bore no active radiation signature, no thermochemical instability. And yet the Medical Ethics Board had classified it under probable biochemical munition, pending verification. It was peanut butter. Smooth, unsweetened, made from roasted earth-grown peanuts. The label Alex's choice. No sugar, no salt, just pure. Ground nuts glared back at the observing team like a dare. Dr. Voss squinted through the glass. It's a paste? Alex, arms crossed, sat on the far side of the containment chamber, beside a stack of nutrient logs and an empty electrolyte pouch. It's a spread, for bread, or fruit, or just a spoon. High protein, good fats, common pantry item back home. Relka tapped at her pad. But it's made from legumes, a dense plant protein, and also loaded with lipids. That's already 2 conflicting macronutrient classes in a single ingestion event. Correct, Voss added, and it's processed. Roasted, ground, and emulsified without mechanical refinement? Alex nodded. Just crushed nuts, basically. Dr. Voss turned pale green. Since the lecture incident, Alex had become a part-time specimen and full-time curriculum expansion project. A formal research protocol had been established, no new Earth foods introduced without prior screening. And so, the peanut butter protocol was born. 3 sessions, full-spectrum scans, 1 human, 6 clinicians, and a single spoonful of roasted plant paste. The spoon itself had been fabricated by the lab xenosterile alloy, calibrated to human mouth volume. Alex wasn't allowed to bring his own. He leaned forward. Ready when you are. Are you ready? Relka asked. You're only 3 days past full gastrointestinal disruption. There's still mild intestinal inflammation on scan. I'm fine, Alex said, a little too fast. He wasn't. Not totally. The chili incident had knocked more out of him than he let on. He'd lost 4 pounds, spent a whole day nauseous. Slept for 13 hours straight the first night and still woke up feeling like his guts had run a marathon. He'd been careful since then. Soft foods, no caffeine, water with electrolyte packets. He even skipped lunch twice, which for a human, especially one in an alien biology program, was basically treason. But this was peanut butter. And damn it, he'd promised them it was safe. The chamber door opened with a hiss. The bioscreen shimmered aside. A technician passed the spoon in, the jar already open, the peanut butter glistening like brown gold. Alex took the spoon, smelled it. Home. He put it in his mouth and swallowed. Nothing exploded. No alarms. The med team held their breath. Then the sensors lit up. Stomach acid response, elevated but stable. Salivary enzyme blend shows moderate protein activation, high lipid retention. Fascinating. Minor gastric cramping expected from reintroduction of fats. Blood glucose rising but not spiking. Absorption curve is smooth. Relka looked up from the monitor. You're fine? Alex lay reclined in the diagnostic bed, spoon resting on his chest. Tastes like Saturday mornings. I used to eat this on apple slices before soccer practice. Dr. Voss scribbled furiously. And your system accepts this blend? Lipids, proteins, trace carbohydrates, roasted plant oils, with no targeted enzyme? We've got enzymes that sort of multitask, Alex said. Our digestion isn't elegant, it just works, sometimes awkwardly. You metabolize with overlap? Voss looked horrified. Simultaneous macronutrient breakdown across competing pH zones? Alex shrugged. Our pancreas throws everything at the wall and sees what sticks. A moment passed. Relka leaned toward the screen again. You said you used to eat this on fruit? Apples, bananas, celery, if you're desperate. Relka turned slowly to Dr. Voss. Do we test that? Absolutely not, Voss snapped. Not until Phase 4 integration trials. Alex lifted his head. There's a Phase 4? There is now. Word of the peanut butter spread faster than the smell of synthesized chlorophyll in a Florvian greenhouse. By the next morning, Alex's inbox had 19 messages, 3 from fellow students, 1 from campus security, and the rest from researchers begging to know what else was in his pantry. One asked if he had any remaining samples of fermented bovine secretion, which he eventually figured out meant cheese. His answer, regrettably, was no. The student council issued an updated food policy. All human meals must be pre-cleared through the Department of Nutritional Risk Management. A line was added to the daily campus alert banner. No peanut-based spreads outside containment chambers. And still, the rumors grew. Alex began noticing the looks. A sort of awe, fear. In some cases, morbid fascination. Even in classes not related to biology, students whispered when he walked past. 2 Raziel, from the diplomacy division, cornered him near a vending terminal and asked if it was true that humans used to preserve meat in salt and leave it unrefrigerated. Yes, Alex admitted, tearing into a foil pack of dried chickpeas. It's called jerky. Both Raziel made distressed chirping noises and ran away. His stomach still hurt, sometimes. Not the peanut butter, he was fully recovered from that. But after the chili and the constant medical poking, his gut had developed the kind of low-grade soreness you don't notice until you laugh too hard or sneeze. The med team gave him supplements. Easy on the digestive lining. Mild anti-inflammatory effects. They worked. Mostly. Still, he'd learned his lesson. He didn't eat and lecture anymore. But he did teach. Human Nutritional Insanity, an adaptive overview, met twice a week, and Alex guest lectured most of them. He spoke about fermentation, preservation, and culinary engineering. He walked them through lactose tolerance, genetics, and early grain domestication. He explained why humans drank water that didn't come from processed nutrient extractors. Because we boil it, he said, grinning, or filter it, or trust our immune systems and gamble. Half the class flinched. Tilvex sometimes sat in the back, silent, recording the lectures with a private data node. He never interrupted. During one session, a Floon raised a question. If your species can survive such volatile intake patterns, what do you consider dangerous? Alex didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands. We die from food all the time, he said quietly. Bacteria, allergens, spoilage, even just overindulgence. Our bodies aren't built to last forever, we just keep going anyway. Silence fell. Then the Sacchetti twins both raised limbs. What is microwave pizza? Alex laughed. Loud enough to hurt. At week's end, Tilvex requested a private meeting. They met in the old lecture hall, quiet now, disinfected thoroughly since the sandwich incident. A containment vault remained bolted to one wall, faintly humming. Tilvex stood by the podium, his neural crest dimmed to a thoughtful blue. "You've changed this campus," he said without preamble. Alex sat on the edge of a bench. Not on purpose. And yet, it happened. A long pause. Then, "I am conducting a paper on adaptive tolerance systems. I want your help." First author credit. Alex blinked. "You're serious?" Tilvex turned. "I do not retract my earlier thesis lightly, but when confronted with evidence, I must revise. The academic path requires humility." "Okay, now I am impressed," Alex muttered. "I wish to understand," Tilvex said, "not just the chemical logic of your diet, but the cultural momentum, the will to adapt at such immense biological risk." Alex scratched the back of his neck. "You'll need a bigger whiteboard. I have requisitioned 3. They both smiled. That night, back in his quarters, Alex sat on his bunk with a fresh electrolyte pouch and a protein bar made from alien grains he'd finally grown to tolerate. His gut still wasn't perfect. Some days it hurt. Some nights he skipped meals out of caution. And there were strict limits now: no hot sauce, no shared meals, and definitely no raw onions. But peanut butter? Peanut butter stayed. He opened a new jar, scooped a spoonful, and ate it slowly. For once, no alarms went off. No med team burst in. Just him and the taste of roasted peanuts. Maybe that was enough for today. The interspecies welcome gala had always been a polite, if predictable, affair nutrient. Fogs misted in ambient colors, spherical music drifted from spinning sound orbs, and carefully plated tasteless cubes floated on anti-grav platters, each labeled with their molecular content in triplicate. No one ate much. Most attendees politely poked at their own species' assigned dish, nodded at cultural speeches, and tried not to inhale anything that might violate their digestive treaties. This year, however, the event organizers made a mistake. They let the humans cater. Technically, it wasn't the entire gala, just one table. A gesture, they said, to foster culinary diplomacy. It had been Tilvex's idea, part of the new cultural inclusion initiative. One dish from each attending species. Even humans. Even Alex. Relka called it brave. Dr. Voss called it stupid. Alex called it Tuesday. He arrived early, carrying a sealed metal case marked "Pressure Stable, Do Not Tilt," and wearing a shirt that read, "I survived the sandwich incident" in 3 local languages. He opened the lid. Steam billowed out. Dozens of alien heads turned as the scent hit the room, warm, sharp, comforting, aggressive. Some shrank back. Others stepped forward, noses twitching, translator fields scrambling to identify individual aromatic compounds. "What is that smell?" whispered a Floon ambassador. "Garlic. And paprika. And maybe butter," answered a nearby Sacheti aide, staring wide-eyed. Alex, calm but already sweating, set up his table. It wasn't flashy, no glowing cubes or molecular fog, just trays, warm, open trays of earth food. Meatballs and tomato sauce, roasted root vegetables, herb rice, something suspiciously like mac and cheese, and, at the center, a small tower of skewered, grilled items marked simply chicken. Cooked, tested, contained. No peanut butter, no hot sauce, and nothing was raw. Above the table, a printed disclaimer in 3 galactic dialects read, "All items have passed Xeno clearance protocols. Taste at your own risk." The first brave soul was from the Planetary Diplomatic Corps, a young Razolade who'd previously asked Alex about beef jerky and the ethics of chewing. He sniffed the chicken, picked up a skewer with 2 trembling fingers, and took a single, cautious bite. A long pause. Then, another bite. Within minutes, the entire table had a queue. Most didn't eat, just looked, scanned, asked questions. But a few tried small portions, carefully selected, and stood very still afterward, waiting for their stomachs to explode. They didn't. By the time Tilvex arrived, 10 dishes were half empty, and 2 Garkti had declared Alex an honorary enzyme anomaly. One Floon was crying after mistaking vinegar-based coleslaw for a cleansing broth. But she waved off assistance and kept eating. Tilvex approached the table like it might lunge. "I was assured there would be safety protocols." "There are," Alex said, gesturing to the 3 med drones hovering nearby, with anti-toxin syringes and portable stomach pumps. "And the food was tested?" "Every batch. Nothing spicy, nothing fermented, no dairy. All meat thoroughly cooked. I even deglazed the pans with water instead of alcohol." Tilvex peered at the food like it might be faking its docility. You did this, why? Alex handed him a small plate with a single rice ball, vegetable stuffed. Because we wanted to be invited, not just studied. Tilvex took the plate. And, after a long, silent moment, took a bite. His neural crest flickered yellow. Savory. Alex grinned. After the gala, 3 departments reached out, asking for recipes. Relka forwarded 20 anonymous surveys, praising the human dishes. The average digestive impact rating was mild discomfort, or, surprisingly, none. Only one student had to visit medbay, and that was because he tried to drink the marinade. Campus security adjusted their protocols. Human food was no longer banned, just cautiously monitored. A small human kitchen pod was approved near the lower quad, with dual exhaust filters and an entire wall labeled Species-Specific Meal Zone, Do Not Enter Without Clearance. Alex taught 2 full sessions a week now. He used slides less and cooked more. It turned out showing students how bread rose was more effective than diagrams. Explaining protein denaturation worked better with a side of scrambled eggs. Even Tilvex contributed, drawing parallels between Terran enzymatic adaptation and ancient Avorthan mineral digesters. They made it work. Alex still had stomach problems sometimes. He'd gotten better at listening to the signs, avoiding risky combinations, skipping meals if something felt off. His energy came back slowly but fully. The weight returned. He felt good again. Whole. Balanced. Most days, 3 months after the sandwich incident, he stood once again at the front of Lecture Hall C, holding a steel lunchbox. This time, it stayed closed. Let's talk about survival, he said. Dozens of species stared back at him. Some leaned forward. A few took cautious bites from nutrient packs that now included trace amounts of Earth-produced ginger, garlic, even lemon extract. Humans didn't evolve to be fearless, or strong, or fast. We evolved to be just good enough to not die, and we learned to make that work. He tapped the box lightly. Our food reflects that. It's messy, chaotic, sometimes dangerous, but it kept us alive. Through ice ages, plagues, wars, and starvation. We used fire, bacteria, time, and trial. We built cuisine from necessity, and that made us who we are. One of the Sesheti twins raised a hand. Do all your foods taste like that chicken? Alex chuckled. Not even close. Some are sweet, some are bland, some will make you question your moral compass. A nervous laugh trickled through the room. Isn't it inefficient? Asked Athrel. Your entire system seems unstable. Alex nodded. Yeah, but it's resilient. It can bend, adapt, handle mistakes. Tilvex, seated near the back, spoke up. Much like your species. Alex smiled at that. A real one. After class, he walked back to the quad. The breeze smelled faintly of spices someone was experimenting in the kitchen pod. He passed the medbay, waved at Relka, who was eating what looked suspiciously like roasted potatoes. He'd given her the recipe. In his pocket, he carried a new item, a research assistant badge. Tilvex had pulled strings, made it official. Earth might have been behind in galactic tech, but their biology was turning heads now. At the far bench near the reflecting pool, he sat down. Opened the lunchbox. Inside, a sandwich. This one was careful. Toasted bread, lettuce, a modest amount of cooked turkey, no onions, a thin layer of mustard, apple slices on the side. He took a bite. No alarms. No containment fields. Just a really good sandwich. In a nearby dorm, a nervous first-year floon opened a small, sealed jar with trembling limbs. Inside, peanut butter, carefully measured. 1 teaspoon, pre-cleared by the lab. She sniffed it. Her eyes widened. Oh no, she whispered. Anne took a bite. 5 seconds later, she sprinted to the sink and chugged water for a full minute. Then turned back, coughed, and muttered, I get it now. As an Antilla.